While I was in Italy, I had no idea that my own daughter was destroying everything I had worked for. The words echoed in Sarah's mind as she stared out of the window of her villa, the sun setting over the Tuscan hills. She had come to Italy to escape, to reconnect with herself after the stress of running the family business for so many years. The quiet beauty of the countryside had been a temporary solace, but now the news she had just received shattered that peace like glass. Her daughter Lily, the one she had raised and trusted more than anyone, had betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to process the gravity of what she had just learned. The family business, the legacy she had built from the ground up, was being torn apart. And Lily, her own flesh and blood, was behind it all. Felt like a cruel twist of fate. The phone call from her attorney had come without warning, her voice shaking as she relayed the devastating news. Lily had embezzled millions from the company and had disappeared without a trace. Sarah's heart sank. It was as though the ground had opened up beneath her, and she was falling into an abyss. How could this have happened? She had spent so many sleepless nights working to make sure the business would succeed, working to ensure that Lily and her younger brother Jack would inherit something stable and secure. And now in an instant everything was crumbling. Her first instinct was disbelief, followed by anger, but it was quickly replaced by an overwhelming sense of confusion. Lily had always been the bright one, the one who showed promise, who said all the right things. She had never been the rebellious type. Or so Sarah thought. How had Sarah missed the signs? What had gone wrong? As Sarah walked through the villa, the soft breeze of the Mediterranean air seemed to mock her, reminding her of the distance she had tried to create from her problems back home. But now those problems were following her. Her daughter, her own flesh and blood, had become someone she no longer recognized. The betrayal felt like a deep wound, one that couldn't be healed easily. As she sat down in the chair on the terrace, the weight of the situation pressed down on her chest. She had to act. But what could she do? Lily had vanished, leaving nothing but the wreckage of their family's future behind. Sarah's thoughts began to race. She couldn't just sit here and let her daughter get away with this. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much. She was a mother, yes, but she was also a businesswoman. And right now her business, the thing she had spent her life building, was crumbling. Sarah stood up abruptly, her mind made up. She would find Lily, no matter what it took. She couldn't let her daughter destroy everything. But deep down, Sarah knew that the search for Lily wasn't just about the money. It was about the years of trust and love that had been shattered in an instant. It was about the feeling of betrayal that gnawed at her heart. And most of all, it was about finding a way to rebuild her life. One that no longer revolved around her daughter's lies and deception. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. This was just the beginning. She would find Lily, confront her, and make sure she paid for what she had done. But no matter what happened, Sarah knew that she could never trust her daughter the same way again. I spent the night tossing and turning, unable to escape the images that kept flashing through my mind. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there, hoping the situation would fix itself. The words my attorney had said still echoed in my mind. Lily's taken everything. She's vanished. Didn't seem real. How could my daughter, my flesh and blood, do this to me? To the family? I had raised her with so much love, and now in the blink of an eye everything was gone. I left the villa early the next morning, the serene Tuscan countryside feeling like a cruel contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I boarded the first flight back to the States, my mind clouded with thoughts of how to fix this. When I landed, it felt as though I had stepped into a different world. The once vibrant and bustling family business, which I had poured my heart and soul into for over 30 years, now lay in ruins. The office building stood there, tall and silent, but the heart of it was gone. My first stop was the lawyer's office. I had to know everything. I walked through the door, trying to hold my composure. "Sarah, I'm so sorry this has happened," the lawyer said, her voice sympathetic but distant. She handed me a file, thick with documents I didn't want to read but knew I had to. As I skimmed through the papers, my heart sank deeper. Lily had systematically drained the company's funds, transferring millions into untraceable accounts. It wasn't just money she had taken. It was my trust. The anger that had simmered inside me finally began to boil over. How could she do this? I had given her everything, trusted her with the future. And now this. The phone rang, cutting through my thoughts. It was Jack, my younger son. Mom, I don't know where she is. I've tried calling her, but nothing. She's gone, Jack said, his voice thick with concern. I could hear the strain in his tone, the worry that mirrored my own. I'm not going to sit here and let her get away with this, I said, my voice more certain than I had felt in days. I'll find her, Jack. She can't hide forever. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, emails, and sleepless nights. I hired a private investigator, hoping he could find any trace of Lily. Meanwhile, I visited the company, seeing how much damage had been done. The employees looked at me with pity in their eyes, but none dared to speak. I could feel the weight of their judgment, but I didn't care. I had bigger things to worry about. With each passing day, I grew more determined. I couldn't let my daughter get away with this, not after everything I had built. I had to protect what was mine, what was our family's. I wasn't going to let her destroy it all. The private investigator called one evening, his voice low. I've got a lead. I tracked her to a small town outside of New York. It looks like she's been staying at a hotel there under an alias. My heart raced. She was close. I was close. Thank you, I said, barely able to contain my excitement. I'm going there now. It was a long drive, but I couldn't stop. I had to face her. As I neared the hotel, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, or what I was going to do, but I had to see her to understand why she had done this. When I entered the lobby, the clerk gave me a blank look, as though she hadn't seen me before, but something in her eyes betrayed her calm. She knew exactly who I was. I'm looking for Lily Thompson, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. The clerk hesitated but then nodded. She checked out earlier today, she said, her tone flat. She left in a hurry. Took a cab to the airport. My chest tightened. She was already on the move again. I had missed her by hours. I stood there for a moment, the weight of the world pressing down on me. The anger that had been simmering inside me began to feel like it was consuming me. How could she just disappear, leaving me with nothing but this empty feeling? I didn't know where she was going, but I would find her. I had to. I wasn't going to let my own daughter slip away from me, not when I had given her everything. I left the hotel, my mind racing. Where could she possibly go? The possibilities seemed endless, but one thing was clear. She wasn't going to escape the consequences of what she had done, and I was going to make sure of it. As I drove back, the city lights blurred around me. I couldn't help but think about all the years I had spent raising Lily, the moments we shared. She had been everything to me. But now I was forced to face the harsh reality. The daughter I knew was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable, someone who could do something like this. The question that haunted me wasn't just why Lily had stolen from me. It was why she had become someone so different. Someone I didn't know. But I wasn't going to stop until I had answers. The sound of the phone ringing pulled Sarah out of her thoughts. It was early morning and she hadn't slept much, her mind racing with questions that seemed to have no answers. She picked up the phone, her hand trembling slightly. Sarah, it's Jack. Her son's voice crackled on the other end. I just spoke with the investigator. They've found something. Her heart skipped a beat. The search for Lily had consumed her every waking moment. What did they find? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. It's not much, Jack said, his voice low. But Lily's been in touch with someone. A man named Daniel Richards. We think he might be involved in the whole thing. They've tracked some calls, and she's been meeting him in secret. The mention of Daniel Richards made Sarah's blood run cold. She remembered the name. He was a former business associate of hers, someone she had trusted years ago. He had always seemed too ambitious, too eager for power. How had she not seen the connection? How had Lily become involved with someone like him? Her mind was spinning. Where is she now? Sarah asked, her voice thick with determination. We're not sure, Jack replied. The investigator's working on it, but it looks like she's headed for New York. That's all we know for now. Sarah's stomach twisted. New York was a big city, full of possibilities and dangers. Lily had always been so clever, so resourceful. But Sarah had underestimated how far her daughter was willing to go. I'll go to New York, Sarah said, her decision made. I need to find her. I need to know why she did this. She felt a surge of adrenaline as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. Her daughter, the person she had loved and trusted, had betrayed her in a way that felt beyond comprehension. But Sarah wasn't going to let this go. She had spent her life building something meaningful, something that was now at risk of being lost forever. It wasn't just the money, the business, it was everything she had worked for. As Sarah prepared for the trip, she couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that gnawed at her. The idea that Lily had not only stolen from her, but had done it with the help of someone she had trusted made her sick to her stomach. She had given her daughter everything. The sacrifices she had made, the late nights at the office, the constant worry. All of it for what? To watch Lily destroy it all? The flight to New York was long, and Sarah barely slept, lost in her thoughts. When she arrived, the city felt overwhelming, like a living entity with its own pulse, its own rhythm. But it was also a place where secrets were easily hidden. She didn't know what she would find, but she was certain of one thing. She would not leave until she had answers. The investigator had given her a lead. Daniel Richards. She had to start there. Sarah's mind kept circling back to him. What did he know? Was he the mastermind behind this, or was he just an accomplice? She had to find him. The next morning, she headed to the address the investigator had given her. It was a rundown office building on the outskirts of the city, far from the glitzy skyscrapers she had imagined. The place looked abandoned, with peeling paint and broken windows. But inside, Sarah found something else, something that made her blood run cold. The door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing a small office cluttered with papers, old books, and a single desk. Behind the desk sat Daniel Richards, his back to her. He didn't seem surprised to see her. "Sarah Thompson," he said, his voice smooth, almost too calm. "I've been expecting you." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How had he known she would come? It was as if everything had been planned, like she was just another pawn in a game she didn't understand. "Where is my daughter?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the rising panic inside her. Daniel turned around slowly, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling calmness. "Lily's not here," he said. "But I'm sure you already know that. She's gone, Sarah. And she's not coming back." His words hit her like a physical blow. She had suspected it, but hearing him say it out loud made it all the more real. Lily had disappeared, and Sarah had no idea where she was or what her daughter was planning next. "What do you want?" Sarah demanded, her voice rising with frustration. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his hands folded in front of him. "I want nothing," he said, his tone casual. "But Lily, she's a different story. She's in over her head, Sarah. She's made deals with people you couldn't even begin to imagine. And now there's no turning back." The words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. Lily was tangled up in something bigger than she had realized, something that would likely ruin everything. But Sarah wasn't going to let her daughter's mistakes destroy her. She wasn't going to let Lily's actions define the rest of their lives. "I'll find her," Sarah said, her voice full of resolve. "And when I do, she'll answer for what she's done." Daniel raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. Sarah turned and walked out of the office, her mind racing. She had come here looking for answers, but now she realized she had only just begun to understand the depth of the web Lily had woven. The road ahead would be difficult, but Sarah knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to give up. No matter how far Lily ran, no matter how deep she hid, Sarah would find her. And when she did, there would be no more secrets, no more lies. Just the truth. Sarah spent the next few days trying to piece together the fragments of her shattered reality. The phone calls kept coming, but none of them offered the answers she was desperate for. Every time she thought she was getting closer to finding Lily, another dead end appeared. It felt as though the universe itself was conspiring against her. Her mind raced, always returning to Daniel Richards, the man who seemed to hold the key to all of this. She had to know more about him, about his connection to Lily. Something in the back of her mind kept telling her that if she could understand him, maybe she could understand what had happened to her daughter. Sarah couldn't afford to waste any more time. She couldn't keep sitting in her hotel room, waiting for answers to fall into her lap. She had to take control. Determined, she decided to track down Daniel herself. His office, or what had once been his office, was now a quiet, desolate building on the outskirts of the city. When Sarah arrived, it was late in the afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the cracked sidewalk. The building looked abandoned, just as she had expected. The familiar feeling of dread began to creep up on her. She took a deep breath and pushed open the door, the hinges creaking in protest. The place was dark, the air thick with dust and neglect. Sarah's footsteps echoed in the empty hall as she made her way toward the back office. She knew Daniel hadn't been in the building for years, but she hoped there might be anything that could give her a clue. As she entered the office, she froze. On the desk was a stack of old papers yellowed with age. Something about it felt off, like a hidden truth was waiting to be discovered. She approached the desk cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. As she sifted through the papers, her eyes landed on a familiar name, Lily's. There it was in black ink, her daughter's signature, confirming her involvement in something much bigger than Sarah had ever imagined. It was a contract, but not one that made sense. It didn't fit the narrative Sarah had been telling herself for the past few days. Why had Lily signed this? What was she getting herself into? Sarah's mind raced. She had to know more. She took the contract and left the building, feeling a mixture of anger, confusion, and desperation. She had seen enough to know that her daughter had been playing a dangerous game, but she still didn't understand why. Why would Lily, the girl she had raised with so much care, choose this path? The next few days were filled with frantic phone calls and meetings with investigators. The more Sarah learned, the deeper the rabbit hole seemed to go. There were connections, hidden deals, and people involved that she never would have suspected. Each new piece of information only made the puzzle more complicated. As Sarah sat in the small cafe near her hotel, sipping a cup of coffee, she felt like a stranger in her own life. Everything she had worked for, everything she had built, was slipping through her fingers. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about her daughter, the child she had trusted with everything. Sarah had always believed that family came first. But now, she wasn't sure what had happened to the family she had once known. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone vibrating on the table. It was Jack. "Mom, I found something," Jack said, his voice urgent. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her pulse quickening. "I think we've finally tracked her down," Jack said. "She's in New York. And I know where she's staying." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was quickly replaced by fear. She had to see her daughter, but she didn't know if she was ready for the confrontation that was coming. Would Lily even talk to her? Would she admit to what she had done? Or would Sarah be forced to confront a daughter who was no longer the person she had raised? The questions were overwhelming, but Sarah knew she had to face them. She had no choice. She was done waiting. With newfound determination, Sarah booked a flight to New York. As the plane ascended into the sky, she felt a sense of finality settle over her. This was it. The moment she had been dreading. The moment she had been preparing for. She had no idea what she would find when she saw Lily, but she knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. She had no illusions left. The world she thought she knew had been shattered, and now it was time to rebuild it piece by piece. When the plane touched down in New York, Sarah felt the weight of the city press in on her. The bustling streets, the crowded buildings, the noise. It all felt so different now. She was a mother searching for answers, but she didn't know what she would find. The address Jack had given her was in the heart of the city, a luxury apartment building that stood in stark contrast to the life Sarah had known. She made her way inside, her heart pounding with each step. When the elevator doors opened to the top floor, Sarah knew this was it. The moment she had been waiting for. She didn't know if she was ready, but she was going in. She had to. The door to Lily's apartment stood in front of her, and as Sarah raised her hand to knock, a part of her still hoped, still wanted to believe that her daughter hadn't changed. But deep down she knew better. Whatever happened next, Sarah was ready. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was someone who had learned the hard way that life could change in an instant. And now it was time for her to change too. Sarah stood at the door of Lily's apartment, her hand hovering over the doorbell. She could hear the faint hum of city life beyond the thick walls, but inside, everything was still silent. She had come all this way, through the confusion, the anger, the sleepless nights, and now she was here standing, on the verge of an encounter that would change everything. She felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest. This wasn't just about confronting her daughter anymore. This was about finding the truth, about understanding why Lily had betrayed her in such a cold, calculated way. Her mind replayed the events of the past few weeks. The shock of the phone call, the discovery of the embezzlement, the endless hours of trying to track down a daughter who seemed to have vanished into thin air. But now the answers were within her grasp. She rang the doorbell. The sound echoed through the quiet hallway, and within moments, she heard the shuffle of footsteps approaching the door. The door swung open slowly, and there she was, Lily, standing in front of her, looking exactly the same as she had the last time Sarah had seen her. For a moment Sarah didn't know what to say. The woman in front of her was her daughter, but she felt like a stranger. Lily's eyes flickered with something, a mixture of guilt, defiance, and fear. Sarah could see it in the way her shoulders were hunched, as if she were preparing for something, bracing for the confrontation she knew was coming. "Mom," Lily said, her voice quiet, almost uncertain. Sarah felt her heart twist. This was her daughter, the child she had raised with love and care. Yet, here they were, facing each other as if they were enemies. "Lily, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. She stepped forward, but Lily didn't move aside. She stood there as if blocking her way, her gaze hardening. "There's nothing to talk about, Mom," Lily said, her voice now tinged with a sharpness Sarah hadn't heard before. "I've made my choices." Sarah's chest tightened. This was not the daughter she had raised, the one who had come to her for advice, for guidance. This was someone different, someone who had abandoned her and the life they had built. "You stole from me, Lily. You stole from our family. You took everything we worked for, and now you're telling me there's nothing to talk about." Sarah's voice wavered, but she didn't back down. Lily's eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything at first. There was a long silence, the tension thick between them. Sarah could see the conflict in her daughter's eyes, the inner turmoil that she had clearly been hiding. "Why, Lily?" Sarah asked, her voice softer now, searching for an answer. "Why did you do this? What happened to the girl I raised, the girl who loved this family?" Lily's face twisted, a mixture of anger and guilt flashing across her features. She took a deep breath, her lips tightening. "You wouldn't understand, Mom," she said, her voice strained. "You wouldn't understand what it's like to feel like I do." Sarah shook her head. "I don't understand, no. But I want to. I want to understand why you chose to destroy everything for what? Money? Power? Is that what you wanted, Lily?" Lily stepped back, as if the words hit her harder than Sarah had expected. "You don't get it," she muttered, her voice shaking. "I did it because I had no choice. I had to. You don't understand what it's like to be in my shoes." Sarah's heart sank. She had expected anger, maybe even defensiveness, but this was something different. There was something more. "What are you talking about?" Sarah asked, her voice low, urgent. "What do you mean you had no choice?" Lily's shoulders slumped, and for a brief moment, she seemed like the girl Sarah had once known. "I've been carrying this weight for years," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've never seen it, but I've been trapped. Trapped by expectations, by what you wanted me to be. I didn't have any freedom, Mom. I couldn't keep living like that." Sarah's mind reeled. She had always tried to give Lily the world, to let her follow her dreams. She had never put pressure on her. But maybe, just maybe, Sarah had been blind to what was really happening beneath the surface. "Trapped?" Sarah echoed. "By me? By this family?" Lily nodded, her eyes finally meeting Sarah's. "Yes, by you, by everything. You had this perfect vision of what I should be, and I couldn't live up to it. So I had to break free. I had to do something for myself." The words hit Sarah like a ton of bricks. She had never imagined that Lily felt this way, that her daughter had been struggling in silence for so long. But now, as she listened to Lily's words, Sarah realized that she had missed something important. She had been so focused on the business, on keeping things running, that she had neglected to see the pain that her daughter was going through. "Lily," Sarah said softly, her heart aching, "I never wanted to trap you. I wanted you to be happy, to find your own path. I thought I was doing what was best for you." Lily shook her head. "It's too late for that now, Mom. I've made my choices and there's no going back." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Sarah wanted to reach out, to pull her daughter into her arms and tell her that everything would be okay, that they could fix this. But she knew better now. There was no quick fix. No easy answer. This was a broken relationship, one that would take time to mend if it could be mended at all. "I want to help you, Lily," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "But you have to want it too. You have to want to fix this." Lily's eyes welled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away, turning her face from Sarah. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. Sarah stood there for a long moment, unsure of what to say next. The silence between them felt like a chasm, wide and impassable. But deep down Sarah knew one thing. This wasn't over. It couldn't be. Not yet. The silence in the apartment stretched on, heavy and thick, as Sarah stood there, trying to process everything Lily had just confessed. The air felt colder now, the warmth that had once existed between them seeming like a distant memory. Lily was still avoiding her gaze, standing by the window, her posture stiff, as though the weight of the conversation had finally sunk in. Sarah could see the tension in her daughter's shoulders, the way her hands were clenched tightly at her sides. It was as if Lily was fighting an internal battle, one that Sarah didn't fully understand but could feel in every inch of her being. Sarah took a step forward, her voice softer this time. "Lily, I need you to look at me. We can't fix this if you don't let me in." There was a long pause before Lily slowly turned around. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her face was pale, the anger that had once been there now replaced by something more vulnerable, more fragile. "I don't know how to fix it, Mom," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I've gone too far. I've hurt you too much." The words hit Sarah harder than she expected, and for a brief moment, she was overwhelmed by the depth of her daughter's pain. "Lily, I'm not asking for everything to be fixed right away," Sarah said, her heart aching. "I'm asking for you to stop running, to stop hiding. Whatever has happened, whatever choices you've made, we can work through it together. But you have to let me help." Lily shook her head, stepping back from Sarah. "You don't get it," she said, her voice almost pleading. "I'm not the same person anymore. I don't even recognize myself sometimes. I didn't know who else to turn to. I thought I was doing what was best for me, but now—" She trailed off, the words too painful to finish. "I never wanted to hurt you, Mom," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it felt like I had no choice. You never really understood me, not completely. You always pushed me to be something I wasn't." Sarah's heart cracked. She had never realized that Lily felt so alienated, so disconnected. She had always believed that she had done her best as a mother, that she had been there for Lily in every way she could. But now, looking at her daughter, Sarah saw just how much she had missed. How much had gone unsaid between them. "I didn't know, Lily," Sarah said softly, her voice filled with regret. "I didn't know you felt this way. All I ever wanted was for you to be happy, for you to be proud of the life we built together. I didn't see how much you were struggling." Lily's gaze softened for a moment, but then she looked away, as if afraid of showing too much emotion. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't want to disappoint you. But it's too late now. Everything's ruined. I ruined everything." "No, Lily," Sarah said, shaking her head. "It's not ruined. You haven't ruined anything. You made some terrible choices, but that doesn't mean it's over. We can fix this. We can find a way to rebuild what we've lost." The words felt foreign coming out of her mouth, but they were the truth. Despite everything that had happened, Sarah couldn't give up on her daughter. She couldn't just turn away. "I'm not giving up on you," Sarah said, her voice steady. "But you have to meet me halfway. You have to stop running from the truth, from what you've done, and face it. Only then can we begin to move forward." Lily remained silent, her eyes fixed on the floor, lost in thought. Sarah could see the internal struggle in her daughter's face, the battle between the guilt she carried and the need for forgiveness. "I don't know if I can," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know how to make things right." "We'll figure it out," Sarah said, her tone firm but compassionate. "We take one step at a time, Lily. We don't have to fix everything overnight. We just have to start." The words hung in the air, an unspoken promise. It wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of pain, moments of doubt, but Sarah was willing to fight for this, for her daughter, for their family. She couldn't give up, not when there was still hope. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, Lily said, her voice filled with uncertainty. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. Sarah reached out slowly, placing a hand on her daughter's arm. You don't have to forgive yourself today, she said softly. But I'm here. And I won't give up on you. We'll take it one step at a time together. Lily didn't say anything at first, but Sarah felt a shift in the air, a small crack in the wall that had separated them. For the first time in a long while, it felt like they were on the same page. It wasn't a happy reunion, and it certainly wasn't the end of their struggles. But it was a beginning. And sometimes that's all you need to start again. The journey ahead would be long and difficult. There would be moments of doubt and frustration. But in that moment, standing there with her daughter, Sarah knew they could find a way back to each other. Together they could rebuild what had been broken. And that was enough for now. Days passed since Sarah and Lily had their heartfelt conversation, and although the air between them felt less tense, the weight of what had happened still hung heavily over both of them. Sarah could see the shift in Lily. She wasn't as defensive, and there was a certain openness, a willingness to talk, but it was still fragile. The cracks in their relationship couldn't be patched in a few days, and Sarah understood that now. She had to be patient. She had to let Lily find her own way back, even if it meant taking things slower than Sarah had hoped. As Sarah sat at the kitchen table one evening, sorting through paperwork that needed attention, her thoughts kept drifting back to the business. Despite the emotional toll, the company still needed her leadership. But how could she go back to business as usual when her family was falling apart? It was a challenge she hadn't anticipated. Just as she finished a particularly difficult call with her lawyer, the doorbell rang. Sarah wasn't expecting anyone, so when she opened the door, she was taken aback by the person standing there. It was Daniel Richards, the man who had been behind everything that had gone wrong, the man who had been the catalyst in the destruction of her family's future. His presence felt like a slap in the face. Sarah, we need to talk, Daniel said, his voice calm, almost too calm. He was dressed in a suit that looked expensive, and yet, despite the polished exterior, Sarah could see the discomfort in his eyes. She didn't invite him in, but he walked past her anyway, as if he were expected. What do you want, Daniel? Sarah asked, her voice firm, trying to mask the anger that was building inside her. You've already taken so much. Now you want to show up here. Daniel turned to face her, his expression softening slightly. I'm not here to cause more trouble, Sarah. I came because I owe you an explanation. And I think you deserve to hear it. Sarah crossed her arms, standing in the doorway, not allowing him to enter further. Explain? After everything you've done, you think you owe me an explanation? Daniel nodded slowly. Yes, I do. You've been left in the dark, and that's not fair. I never intended for things to go this far. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She was having a hard time keeping her composure. You never intended for things to go this far? Really? Because from where I'm standing it looks like you played a part in destroying everything. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I understand your anger. I would be angry too. But Lily, she's not entirely to blame for what happened. I played a bigger role than you think. I manipulated her, Sarah. And I know that makes me a villain in this story. But I'm here because I want to help you fix this. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The words sounded too rehearsed, too calculated. You want to help me fix this? After everything? She asked, incredulous. You're not even sorry for what you did. You're only here because you want to save yourself. Daniel looked down, his face twisted in guilt. Maybe you're right. I have my own reasons for being here. But I also know that I can't let this continue. What happened with Lily? It was wrong, and I'm partly responsible for it. Sarah's mind raced. She had no intention of trusting Daniel, but if he was telling the truth, if there was more to this than just a business deal gone wrong, she had to know what it was. She let him talk, even though every word felt like a betrayal. You see, Daniel continued, his voice quieter now, Lily wasn't the only one who was manipulated. I've been working with someone who has his own agenda, and I'm afraid that now it's too late to stop him. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Who? She asked, her voice low, filled with suspicion. His name is Thomas Blackwell, Daniel said, his tone grim. He's a dangerous man, Sarah. And I've been under his thumb for a long time. I thought I could control him, but I was wrong. Sarah's stomach turned. Thomas Blackwell was a name she knew all too well. An investor who had once been a part of their company. But he had always seemed like the kind of person who stayed in the background, never truly involved in the day-to-day operations. Sarah had no idea that he was the one pulling the strings. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Sarah asked, her voice shaking with frustration. Why wait until now to come clean? Daniel looked guilty, but his expression hardened as he spoke. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could keep things under control. But when Lily got involved, everything spiraled out of control. Blackwell wants the company. Sarah. He wants to take it from you, and he's not going to stop until he gets it. Sarah's mind reeled. Everything was starting to fall into place. Lily's betrayal wasn't just about money. It was about something much bigger. It was about power, about control. And now they were all caught in the web of a much larger scheme. I need you to help me, Sarah, Daniel said, his voice desperate now. I can't do this on my own. If Blackwell gets his hands on the company, it's over. For both of us. Sarah didn't answer right away. She needed to think. This was bigger than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just her family and business at stake. It was everything. Her daughter had made mistakes, yes, but Sarah realized now that Lily wasn't the only one who had been deceived. If she wanted to save everything she had worked for, Sarah had no choice but to take action. I'm listening, she finally said, her voice steady with determination. But you'd better have a plan, Daniel, because I won't let him win. The next few days felt like a whirlwind. Sarah barely had time to process everything that had happened before she was thrust into a new, urgent mission. Daniel's revelation about Thomas Blackwell and his plans for the company changed everything. It wasn't just about getting answers from Lily anymore. It wasn't just about fixing their broken relationship. Now it was about protecting the family legacy, protecting the business she had built from the ground up. The stakes had never been higher. Sarah spent hours meeting with her lawyer, going over contracts and documents, trying to piece together what she could do to stop Blackwell. His influence in the business world was vast, and he wasn't the type of person to back down easily. But Sarah wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. She called Lily again, hoping this time her daughter would answer. There was no way Sarah could fight this battle alone. She needed Lily, even if it meant confronting the pain and betrayal all over again. The phone rang twice before it was picked up. Hello. Lily's voice was strained, but it was still unmistakably her. Lily, we need to talk, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. We're running out of time. There was a long pause before Lily responded. What now? Mom, what else do you want from me? The anger was clear in her voice, but it wasn't the same sharpness Sarah had heard before. This was different. More resigned, more distant. Sarah took a deep breath. I know you've made mistakes, Lily, but we have to stop Blackwell. He's trying to take everything. The business, the company, our family's future. We can't let him win. I need you on my side. There was silence on the other end of the line. Sarah could almost hear Lily processing the words, weighing them, trying to decide what to say. Why would you still want me involved after everything I've done? Lily finally asked, her voice softer now, more vulnerable. Because you're my daughter, Lily. And despite everything, I still believe in you. I always have. Sarah's voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on. We can't undo what's been done, but we can stop Blackwell. Together we can fight this. For a moment, Sarah thought Lily might hang up on her. But then she heard a shaky sigh. I don't know if I can fix everything, Mom, Lily said. But I'll help you. I can't let Blackwell destroy what's left. The words Sarah had been waiting to hear. A small flicker of hope began to light up the darkness she had been living in for weeks. Thank you, Sarah whispered, relief flooding through her. We'll figure this out, Lily. Together. The next few days were a blur of strategy meetings, phone calls, and late-night research. Sarah and Lily worked side by side, poring over documents, trying to find a way to outsmart Blackwell. Every lead they followed seemed to lead to a dead end, but they kept going. They had no choice. If they wanted to save the business, they had to be smarter than Blackwell. It wasn't just about legal battles or money, it was about survival. But as the days passed, Sarah began to see a change in Lily. She wasn't just helping out of obligation. She was invested. She was starting to believe, too, that they could win. And Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Despite everything that had happened, her daughter was still willing to fight for their family. One afternoon, as they were wrapping up another meeting, Sarah sat back in her chair, exhausted but hopeful. "We're getting closer, I can feel it," she said, looking at Lily. Lily nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I never thought I'd be back here working with you like this," she said quietly. "I never thought I'd have the chance to make things right." Sarah's heart swelled with emotion. "You've always had the chance, Lily. I've always believed in you, even when it seemed impossible." They shared a quiet moment, the weight of the past still between them, but with a sense of understanding that hadn't been there before. They weren't just mother and daughter anymore. They were allies. "What's our next step?" Lily asked, breaking the silence. Sarah smiled, a plan already forming in her mind. "We're going to meet Blackwell. Face to face." Lily's eyes widened. "Are you sure? He's dangerous, Mom. He'll do anything to get what he wants." "I know," Sarah said, her voice steady. "But we can't let him think he's won. We have to show him that we're not afraid, that we're not backing down. It's time to take control." The next morning, Sarah and Lily prepared for the meeting with Blackwell. It was risky, but Sarah knew it was the only way to gain the upper hand. They couldn't play it safe anymore. They had to take a stand. The meeting was scheduled for noon at a private location. As they entered the room, Sarah's heart raced, but she kept her composure. Blackwell was sitting at the table, his back to the door, as if he were waiting for them. When he turned to face them, his smug expression made Sarah's blood boil. "I've been expecting you," he said, his voice dripping with confidence. "You're too late, you know. The company is already mine." Sarah didn't flinch. "Not yet," she said firmly. "We still have a few cards to play." The tension in the room thickened as the battle of words began. Sarah and Lily stood their ground, refusing to give in to Blackwell's threats and intimidation. It was a fight for their future, and they weren't about to back down now. The stakes were higher than ever, but Sarah knew one thing for sure. This was their moment. This was the beginning of the end for Blackwell. They were going to win. Together. The tension in the room was palpable as Sarah and Lily stood across from Thomas Blackwell, the man who had been trying to tear their lives apart. He leaned back in his chair, a smug smile on his face, as if he had already won. But Sarah knew better. She had come this far, and there was no way she was going to let him take everything she had worked for. Lily stood beside her, her hands clenched at her sides, but Sarah could see the resolve in her daughter's eyes. She was no longer the scared girl who had made reckless decisions. She was ready to fight for what was right, and Sarah was proud of her for it. "You really think you've won, don't you, Blackwell?" Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with defiance. Blackwell's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. "I don't think, Sarah. I know I've won. The company is mine. It's just a matter of time before it's all in my hands." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Not if I can help it," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "I've been around long enough to know when someone is bluffing." Blackwell's eyes narrowed, the challenge in Sarah's voice clearly hitting a nerve. He leaned forward, his demeanor shifting slightly. "You're wasting your time," he said, his tone more serious now. "You can't stop what's already in motion. The deals are done. You've lost." Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You may have made deals behind our backs, but you forgot one thing. The truth always comes to light." At this, Lily stepped forward, her voice strong. "You underestimated us, Blackwell. You thought we were just going to sit back and let you take everything, but we're not going to let you win. Not without a fight." Blackwell's smile faltered for a moment, but then he chuckled. "You think you can win this? You think you can beat me?" "We don't need to beat you, Blackwell," Lily said, her eyes locked onto his. "We just need to expose you for what you really are. A manipulator who thinks money and power can buy everything." Sarah felt a wave of pride wash over her. Her daughter was no longer the girl who had been lost in the chaos of betrayal. She was standing tall now, confident, ready to fight for what was right. "It's over, Blackwell," Sarah said, her voice final. "You've been playing a game you can't win. The truth will come out, And when it does, you'll have no one left to turn to. Blackwell stood up, his face a mask of anger now. You think you've won? You have no idea what you're dealing with, he spat. I'll make sure you regret this. Sarah stepped closer to him, her gaze unwavering. No. You're the one who's going to regret underestimating us. For a moment the room was silent, the tension so thick it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Then Blackwell, with a final glare, turned and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah and Lily stood there, both feeling the weight of what had just transpired. But Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. They had won, but it wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about their family, their relationship. They had faced their darkest moment together, and now they could begin to heal. We did it, Lily said, her voice soft but filled with emotion. Sarah nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. We did it, she repeated. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges to face, more battles to fight. But for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt like they had a chance. They had come through the storm and now they could rebuild. Together.